there is, as Katie pointed out in her story, a lot of incentive for both sides to get this done. The Cardinals want to create opportunities for younger players. Nolan Arenado wants to play for a winner.
Let's hit the inside scoop with FT Senior Insider Ken Rosenthal. Ken, good to see you. I listened to Fair Territory yesterday, which everyone can absorb, and it started with the Yusei Kikuchi signing. So I'll follow up on that one and push it forward. How do you think it affects the market for mid-tier starters, the ones that aren't really Snell, Fried, and Corbin Burns? Some fans in our chat said, oh, this might be an overpay. I'm like, I don't know. It's like the qualifying offer for 3 years.
Actually, if you look at Tim Britton in The Athletic and his free agent predictions, his prediction for Kikuchi was 3 years, $63 million. Bingo. MLB Trade Rumors, their prediction was 3 years, $60 million. So when you ask Scott, how will this affect the market? This is the market. And this is what a mid-tier starter gets in this day and age. So for Sean Manaea, for Luis Severino, for some of those other mid-tier starters, obviously, it's a good development, but not a surprising development. This is about where people who know this stuff, like Tim and Trade Rumors, thought this would end up.
And are you surprised that the Angels are doing this? I mean, I know you mentioned also Artie Moreno sometimes is pretty quiet, and then sometimes wakes up and says, hey, let's get after it a little bit more. Does this tell you anything about what the Angels think of their ball club? They have a lot of work to do to get from where they were, worst season ever in franchise history, to relevancy.
They certainly do. They finished last place. They were 6 games behind the A's in the AL West. And while they have an intriguing group of young players with Zach Neto, who might miss the start of the season, and Shanuel and Ben Joyce and Logan O'Hoppe, at the same time, they are, like you said, Scott, ways away. So what they've tried to do this offseason is kind of interesting. They've brought in a bunch of 30-somethings. Guys who have good reputations, good character guys in the clubhouse. From Soler to Kevin Newman to Kyle Hendricks to Travis d'Arnaud and now Kikuchi. This is a solid group of players. The question is, will it be enough? And that's always the question with the Angels. They do these things. They make moves. They don't rebuild. But it always seems, actually I shouldn't say always, but it often seems like they're spinning their wheels. And depending upon what else they do, it remains to be seen if this season will be any different.
So I want to stay on that. Go ahead, Kratzy. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I want to stay on the Angels because I'm with you, Ken. They go out and they sign their ace, I guess you could say. You get rid of Estevez, who was really good in the bullpen last year. Where are they going? You talk about the middle of the infield. I keep thinking about a guy in Gleyber Torres. What else are they trying to do? Because I know Ron Washington is a defensive first guy. He wants to shore up the middle of that infield. Is there a place or a world where Gleyber Torres may be a fit when you talk about the 30-somethings?
Gleyber's an interesting name for them. They need a second baseman or a third baseman. Renifo can play either or. And Gleyber's defense is spotty. It's inconsistent. His focus seems to waver. So I don't know if he'd be the ideal fit there, but he's certainly a name that is out there, kind of an intriguing guy because he's still a very talented player. Now, they still have to rebuild their bullpen. They might need one more starter as well. There are things that they can and should do. But let's not forget, too, we've had this conversation now for a couple of minutes, and we haven't even mentioned Mike Trout. Mike Trout has to be healthy and playing and productive for this team to be anything close to what it intends to be. Rendon is kind of out of the equation at this point. If he gives them anything, they'll consider that a massive bonus. They're not expecting it. But Trout is still the centerpiece of the group. Now, whether he's in center field or one of the corners or DHing more, that remains to be seen. But a healthy, productive Mike Trout is really the key for the Angels. And of course, we haven't seen that guy in some time now.
On Fair Territory, you broke down the cost cutting for the Braves. Is this was this going to happen no matter what? If they had won the World Series this year, were they going to be doing this cost cutting to be able to fit another piece? I think if you did the math, I think it was like $27 million that they could try to fit in another player into that without going over the CPT threshold for the third straight year. Is that what you said?
Yes. Yes.
Do you feel like the moves they're making, was this going to happen anyway, no matter if they had a successful season like they had hoped to have if everyone had been healthy?
Eric, it's a good question. Certainly, if they had won the World Series, the equation changes. Teams that win the World Series make a lot of money and generally are willing to reinvest it to some degree in the following year's team. And you see the moves that they've made so far, they've all been cost-cutting moves for the most part. Now, they're going to do some things. And the thing that has changed for them, and the reason why they've had to be this aggressive in reducing payroll thus far, is because Acuna and Strider will not be ready for the start of the season. We don't know exactly when they'll make their debuts, but they need a starting pitcher to replace Strider, at least temporarily, an outfielder to replace Acuna, at least temporarily, and beyond all that, they've also lost Joe Jimenez, who was their setup man last year. He's a guy who was a really good setup man, and they've got to find a spot for him too. So what they've been doing is trying to save wherever they can with the goal of building back up and replenishing in some of these areas where, at least early in the season, right field, starting rotation, they're going to have needs.
Ken, let's go to Juan Soto. I mean, there are so many random reports. Social media is just going nuts. There's people that I'm learning about that I've never heard of. I'm not trying to slight anyone. Someone might be on the money, but there's so many reports out there with different money, different teams involved. We know some people are very wrong. So when you're trying to sort through this, and I know you have your own standards of how you report, what do you think about what's being thrown out there right now?
We don't know what's going on right now. And certainly there are offers being made. That's been reported. That I believe to be true. As Brendan Cuddy of The Athletic reported this morning, this is the first phase. This is the preliminary offers. The offers then will be redone next week, perhaps, and they go from there. This all points toward the winter meetings. That's the one thing I'm confident about, that this thing will get done in or around the winter meetings. As far as who is offering what, we don't know that just yet. And it's all speculation. It's fun to think about and it's interesting to talk about, but as you see there from Brendan, offers for Juan Soto are expected to go through multiple rounds. The first round is expected to be preliminary, meant to gauge genuine interest from all parties. And then this starts around next week when it kind of accelerates again. All the stuff that is out there right now, beyond the teams interested, we really don't have much of a feel for. We know pretty much the teams interested. That, I think, we can say with some certainty. The 5 teams that have been listed all along: Mets, Yankees, Dodgers, Blue Jays, Red Sox. Beyond that, Scott, I don't have a lot of information, and there's not going to be a lot of good information, at least not yet.
That's fair. Okay, let me take you to Nolan Arenado. I liked the story this morning from Katie Wu to provide more context on where the Cardinals are at and the possibility that they're going to amp up conversations around the winter meetings to try and trade him. What did you take from her reporting, and do you think this is going to be difficult to pull off? We were trying to figure out teams that would be a good fit. Some of those teams, like, let me just throw an example out to you. Toronto, would he waive his no trade clause? I know he said he would for certain cases. They're not proven to be contenders and winners, and there's always the complications of Canada. So curious what you think and how difficult this could be to pull off.
I do believe it will be difficult. It's the money that he is owed. It's the fact that he has been in decline the last 2 years. It's the full no trade clause. It's all of that. And the Cardinals are not going to want to eat a lot of money, and yet teams taking Arenado are saying, whoa, we're not paying the rate that he is currently being paid at. That's not where he is valued right now. So that's going to be one problem right there. That said, there is, as Katie pointed out in her story, a lot of incentive for both sides to get this done. The Cardinals want to create opportunities for younger players. Nolan Arenado wants to play for a winner. He thought that was going to happen, and it did happen for a time when he was with the Cardinals. That's why he approved the trade from the Rockies to the Cardinals. But obviously, the Cardinals now are shifting into sort of a retooling mode, and they're being very upfront about that. So there is incentive and motivation on both sides, but it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out. Now, the most newsworthy part of Katie's article is when she mentioned, quoting sources, that Arenado is willing to play other positions, first base, perhaps even less at third, in order to facilitate a trade, make himself more attractive for a potential suitor. As a first baseman, with his declining offensive numbers, it's still not great, but clearly he is desiring to get to a place where he can win again. And that's the one thing. He hasn't played that many playoff games in his career. I believe it's only 8. And that's something that for Nolan Arenado is not good enough. He wants to get back to October.
Everybody can pretty much agree the Nats are taking steps forward. You talked about a Jason Worth type of signing. Is there because you look at Jason Worth and you say, okay, well, who's the outfielders on the market? And all, I think it's more of just the general player that is going to bring more people in. Is there a length? Do you think that the Nats are looking for a contract? Like if, obviously Kikuchi is not one of those types of people. It's a 3-year deal, older player. Are we looking at somebody that's going to be garnering 5-8 years? Is that the type of player that you think the Nats may or may not go after?
No, I don't expect they're going to do something that dramatic. Their ownership has not spent in recent years. They have not wanted to spend. The team is for sale. It's not for sale. It keeps changing. With Worth going into the 2011 season, they had kind of a similar foundation to what they have now. An emerging young core, a team with great promise, and they wanted Worth to provide that veteran influence, and they gave him 7 years, $126 million, which at the time was considered a massive overpay. Now, there are players out there who fit them rather well. Christian Walker is one. I mentioned him. Now he's going to be 34. That could be a deterrent for a longer deal, of course, but maybe a 3-year deal. But the problem with Christian Walker for the Nationals is he's probably going to have better options. Anthony Santander is another player to whom they've been linked. He's an outfielder. They've got outfielders, but he's the kind of guy, too, that could help kind of be an anchor for what they are intending to be going forward. The ultimate question here is whether the Lerner family, the owners of the team, are willing to make a sizable investment again. Now, yes, they offered Soto $440 million a couple of years ago. It was an offer they probably knew he would refuse, and it went from there. I just don't know if their intention is to spend big. That's the question I have. They can piece this together and sign a veteran here, a veteran there, kind of mid-level guys, or they can go for someone bigger who could have that kind of impact that Worth had all those years ago. And I should say this, for Jason Worth, yes, at the time it was considered an overpay, but when you look at what he did for the Nationals and the stability he provided, the fact that he kind of became a magnet for other players as well, and the performance, it was well worth the money for them.
So, Ken, we just talked about a organization heading in the right direction. And as we talk about all these free agents, the moves and possibilities, the one team that another offseason is upon us and we don't hear anything about is the Minnesota Twins. In that division, you see the Detroit Tigers starting to come on. You see what the Royals are starting to do, starting to piece together some veterans with their youth. What are the Twins doing right now? Like, where are they as an organization? We've heard about them shopping Byron Buxton possibly. The Correa deal hasn't. I think we could all say he hasn't played up to that deal. Royce Lewis tends to stay hurt. Where are the Twins right now? What are they trying to do to kind of give their fan base a little hope?
Cam, it's a great question. And it seems to me that they're not too eager to spend, that they're going to do piecemeal things. Now, the key thing with the Twins, they like their team. They've got a lot of pieces in place, as you just mentioned. The question is, can Buxton, can Lewis, and Correa stay on the field all at once? Didn't happen all that often last year. Would they entertain a Correa trade? He's got a full no trade. They could entertain it, but that's not the direction they want to go in. So really, they will either need to be creative or sign a couple of players that they feel can fill in the gaps for them. Perhaps in the bullpen would be one area to explore. But their position group, their team overall, when you look at them, it's quite talented. So there's still a good chance that they'll be a good club next year, even if they don't do a whole lot. But hey, they had a horrible finish to the season, and everyone knows it. So it would behoove them, in my opinion, to kind of inject a little energy into the clubhouse, into the fan base, and go forward from there. Because as you mentioned, Cam, that division's getting better. Cleveland's good. Kansas City was much better last year, of course. Detroit, the same. And the White Sox will still be in a rebuilding mode this year, but eventually they're going to be on the rise as well.
Ken, this is great info as always. Appreciate the time. Good to see you. And we will see you on Fair Territory on Friday for a special Black Friday edition. So we'll see you then, okay?
Yep, same price as always, too.
Ooh, that's good. I like that. I'm going to tell AJ that. Actually, he's watching, surprisingly. Thank you, Ken. AJ texted me, so he is watching and listening. That was good. You like that, Kratz?
I love that.
Hey, everybody. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.